Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. I read bad books so that you don't have to. I'm continuing my read through of Fury by Elizabeth Miles. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. The following video might be difficult for some viewers. If you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, please reach out. People care about you. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255. Chapter 24. Every nerve in M's body buzzed as she prepped for the prep rally. Out of every word meaning to get ready for, and the author picked prepped, and the editors let her. As Emily gets ready, she thinks about maybe kissing JD at the prep rally, but then she thinks about Allie and her possible impending death, because priorities, I guess. I can't, come get me. He hit me. We had a fight. Gabby was hysterical, speaking in fractured sentences punctuated by sobs. Wait, Gabs, what? Suddenly Elm felt very alert. Who hit you? Zach. As soon as Gabby spoke the name, another sob transformed her voice, making her words inaudible for a moment. Then she blubbered, he wanted to talk. I know I shouldn't have gone, but her words were swallowed by another sob. We had a fight, and I can't believe this is happening. I'm here alone. So now we're throwing in an assault charge? How the hell did the Furies pick Emily over Zach? The guy is a menace to society and would likely be locked up for something before too long, no matter what. Gabby said she literally jumped out from Zach's car. Since it's still January and she was in the middle of the road, she ran to the closest place, which is the new mall. Emily promises to be there shortly. But before she goes, she has to tell JD that she's not going to be there for the first couple of minutes because of Gabby's emergency. He seems disappointed, but asks if she'll be there later. Emily promises. Emily gets to the mall construction site. Despite the late hour, the crews are working overtime since the mall was supposed to have been finished before now. Emily doesn't have signal randomly because, of course not. We're in the final stretch of a psychological thriller. She can't be able to simply call Gabby. So she gets out and starts walking around. She watches some of the workmen laying concrete for a while before going in search of her friend, but then she gets a text from JD, which seems odd on so many levels that she can receive a text but can't make a call. Anyway, the message says that Gabby is at the bonfire. And there are the Furies, because of course they're here, and of course Allie had disguised herself as Gabby, and of course Emily forgot the snake charm at home in her rush out the door. Emily runs. They chase her, sending her telepathic taunts, and of course Emily gets trapped in a dead end and has to double back and then gets lost. And don't get me wrong, because I normally enjoy psychological thrillers, but this ain't it. It's like the author sat down and thought of the most cliche horror tropes and then tacked them on to the big climax of her story. This is boring. I didn't read 200 plus pages only for the story to end like this. Eventually, Ty offers Emily a chance to fix things. Emily naturally doesn't trust anything that the Fury has to say and struggles against Ty's hold in her arm. But then Ty drags Emily along. After a moment, Emily looks back and realizes that a big crane had dropped an equally large chunk of pipe onto some wet cement, which is where Emily had been a moment earlier. However, Emily also realizes that the pipe had randomly buried Meg and Allie. And the construction crews don't see the random girls wandering around. Even if there's some supernatural explanation as to why nobody else can see Ty, Meg, and Allie, why can't they see Emily? None of this makes any sense. I also completely and utterly love the cartoon-esque crash ending. Not. Emily runs back towards her car where she's surprised to see Meg and Allie, who are both alive and well, thank you much, along with Ty. They point to a beat-up car not too far away, and Emily identifies it as being JD's car, and it sounds like they're going to punish Emily by punishing JD? Makes perfect sense, sure. Not. Chapter 25. M's fear was ice, stilling her hurt. JD was about to be smothered in thick cement, suffocated, trapped. I refuse to accept any idea that the Furies are not intentionally hiding JD and Emily from the sight of the construction workers. The fact that the crew would intentionally and willingly ignore all and any safety regulations and laws and literally murder a child is too out there. Also, when I went to enact revenge on somebody for wronging me, the number one way I do it is to randomly punish an unrelated third party. That'll teach them. Emily realizes that her punishment isn't death, but for her to have to witness somebody she loved to be taken away from her. She runs over to where the pipe crushed JD into the ground, and in that same level of strength mothers find inside of them to lift cars off from their children, Emily moves the pipe. JD is naturally hurt really badly, but somehow still alive. Quick question. What the frick-frack paddywhack are all of the construction workers doing while all of this is going on? Even if they can't see Emily, JD, or the Fury, surely they see the giant pipe somehow moving? Emily helps him over to some rubble where he can sit upright, but as you can imagine, him being beamed over the head with a pipe and having the same pipe crush your leg, JD isn't in amazing shape. For the first time, she took in what he was wearing: dark jeans and a long-sleeved lumberjack plaid shirt. No hat, no rear jacket, no deer sweatshirt. This is what he'd worn to the pep rally. He'd gone out of his way to look average for her. The realization was a stake stabbing into her heart. Son, let me give you a little bit of life advice. Don't dull your sparkle for anybody. I don't care how long that you've been in love with them or how popular that they are. Stop it. Relationships come and go, but you always have to live with yourself. Emily continues to try and pull JD away from the area, and I get that these construction crews are apparently 100% oblivious to Emily and JD, but I cannot get over how unaware that they are. I hope JD's family sues them so much that the mall goes bankrupt before it opens. Anyway, Emily calls to the three Furies who have been watching from the sidelines this entire time. This is wrong. You know it. You must know it. This is not justice. This is not karma. This isn't helping anything. You're not teaching anything. She's right, though. Do you think Sasha's mother felt better upon hearing about Chase's death? What about JD? He literally has nothing to do with any of this, yet the Furies are intent on murdering him anyway. Y'all know that I'm not into Christian dogma, but the entire eye for an eye thing sounds appropriate right about now. Emily looks at Ty and begs for her to do something, anything. Ty holds out some berries and tells Emily that if she swallows them, then JD will be saved, but there would be consequences and that there are rules. Emily naturally wants to save her friend, but she's reluctant to trust even Ty. The Fury says Emily would be bound to the three of them and that Emily cannot tell a single soul about any of this. Emily swallows the berries and JD starts to come around, seemingly being cured from a near-fatal blow to the head. Chapter 26. 2 weeks pass. Emily and Gabby work on fixing their relationship. Zach is shipped off to boarding school. And it's not that I'm sorry to see him go. I'm actually glad over the idea that he's probably not going to be the skis in the rest of the scaries. But the offhanded way that the entire situation wrapped up is like, okay. Emily suffers from some sort of supernatural PTSD following what happened. We'll probably read all about the after effects of those things she ate in the rest of the series. Meanwhile, JD seems less than thankful about Emily having saved his life. I don't know if his emotional distance is because he literally doesn't remember anything or if it's supernaturally caused, but damn boy, there's no reason to ice your oldest friend out from your life. While that's going on, Emily has been learning as much as she can from Drea, which makes sense seeing as how Emily will probably be dealing with this for the rest of her life. The narration brushes over this, but it seems like Drea has been encouraging Emily to try and win JD back, even without being able to tell him what really happened. Before the book ends... I spoke too soon. We see Zach at his new school, although I don't hate it because he's approached by a Fury and given one of those red flowers, which is the only thing that I actually wanted. The book ends on that note. And now for final thoughts. I went into this with the idea that this was the author acting out her revenge on people who were mean to me in high school. Not once did this book do anything to convince me otherwise. Now that I can put this entire thing into perspective, I can say that the actual build-up took way too long and seemed to almost serve little point. In hindsight, the way that Chase's story was presented really ticks me off. Why? Because when we're with Emily, we see her starting on her romance with Zach. We see her behaving poorly. We are not rooting for her. But with Chase, the entire business with Sasha was tacked on like a cheap afterthought. We only got his actual true backstory with Sasha literal seconds before he died. And I'm endlessly frustrated over how every single adult in town did literally nothing about what sounds suspiciously like an underage porn exchange ring. Now, the narration never actually says either way what exactly kind of photos that Shasta sent Chase, if they were pornographic in nature or not. We get more hints about the photos Ty took of Chase. I said in the original chapter, but the creation, owning, and distribution of anything sexual for somebody under the age of 18 is considered to be child pornography. And yes, it is a federal crime, and the fact that these photos were posted not only onto the school's Facebook page and even more photos plastered up in the school cafeteria, yet not one single adult did anything about any of this. This isn't a case of kids being kids. This is a literal federal crime. There were a lot of things that the author could have done in order to make Sasha into the victim and for the Furies to get their revenge on Chase, but the fact that she actively chose this storyline honestly speaks volume about who she is as a person. Anyway, as usual, I plan on finishing the other 2 books, Envy and Eternity, on Patreon. Membership starts at $1 a month and includes so many other books, Snark, that isn't up anywhere else. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, the reveal of the next book, Alienated by Melissa Landers. That's going to start on Monday. Anyway, as usual, Fury sign off one last time. The contents of this book can be quite intense, I know. If you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. People care about you. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all of my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, then you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you can either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!